everybody. Today we are debating atheism versus Christianity, and we're starting right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here for another epic debate as we today have none other than Jim Majors and Dunkin Atheism debating Christianity versus atheism. And if this is your first time here, consider hitting that subscribe button as we've got a lot more debates coming up. In fact, if you want a reminder, also hit that notification bell for this Saturday. You'll see at the bottom right of your screen, Vosh versus Sargon this Saturday on immigration, capitalism, socialism, and if we have time, transgenderism. So it's going to be a huge one. And want to let you know as well, both of our speakers have their links in the description. So if you are enjoying what you hear, you're like, got to get more of that Dunkin Atheism in my life. Well, his link is conveniently located just below in that description box down there. And with that, I want to let you know, it's going to be 8 to 10 minute opening statements, and then it's open discussion, which I think most people usually prefer. It's going to be lively, it's going to be fun, and Q&A right after that. So if you have a question, fire that question into the live chat. If you tag me at Modern Day Debate, it'll make it easier for me to make sure that I don't miss it. And gentlemen, Jim and Duncan, so stoked to have you guys here. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, super stoked to be here, James. Thanks.
You betcha. And ladies and gentlemen, want to let you know as well, do I remember right? Was it Duncan you're going first? No, Jim is going first.
I thought Duncan was, but I can go first.
It's got to be one of you. Okay, so Duncan will be going first. Sorry about that. Long day. Okay, so we're excited, folks. Whew. Duncan, I had the timer set for you.
Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, I'll be short and sweet. I usually don't have a long introduction. Jim and I are discussing atheism versus Christianity. I hold to the Christian worldview, that Christianity is not only true, but it's the only reasonable and rational worldview to hold, in virtue that the God of the Bible exists and he has revealed himself both in natural and special revelation. And the denial thereof is impossible. So if one denies that you cannot prove God, then you won't be able to prove anything. It's a reductio ad absurdum. So if someone is familiar with natural revelation, they're familiar with special revelation. That's all they need to know, that the God of the Bible exists. It's that simple. Deny it, and you're going to be in an abyss of absurdity.
You got it.
And I'm done.
It's a bold opening statement for you there, Jim. So thanks so much, Duncan and Jim Majors. The floor is yours. Oh, I think I might have muted you. Let me double check that it wasn't me. Oh, yes, you are muted on
Okay, can you hear me now?
You betcha.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and thank you so much, Duncan, for taking this debate. I'm looking forward to our discussion. So the overwhelming majority of religions today, as most of you know, are the Abrahamic religions. They're named for the alleged forefather that heard God tell him to kill his son, so he tied his son up and set off to do just that, and it was stopped last minute. Years later, at the very likely and totally not senile age of 99, he became the first of God's people to be circumcising himself after hearing God tell him to cut off his own foreskin. He then proceeded to carry out the command of God by circumcising his son and all 318 members of his house, including his slaves, both bought and acquired otherwise, as a sign of the covenant. Did I mention that the first Jew, the father of Abrahamic religion, he purchased and owned slaves. So when we talk about things like absolute truth or objective morality or things like that, then we really start to run into some issues. But we'll talk about that later. But you see, what the particular problem with this religion specifically is that we have to apply the standards of morality from a Middle Eastern culture, derived from Bronze Age to cultures 2,500 years ago plus, to today's society. When religion claims to be a source of objective morality, a moral responsibility comes into question. Things like slavery, genocide, genital mutilation, xenophobia, homophobia, bigotry, It comes into question when you demand that others allow the perpetuation of religions that force people to adhere to commandments that are not compatible with civilized societies. It comes into question when it demands outrage at abortion, but equally demands that you approve of Joshua killing pregnant Canaanite women with indeed divine authority. If I am unable to know and to have morals or truth or rationality without God, then what standards am I to appeal to in order to know that your God is indeed a good God? By what measure am I to discern whether your God is worthy of me trusting him as the arbiter of morality and an aspiring model of ethical behavior? What standard did you, Duncan, in particular, measure God against to determine whether him and his actions are good or evil, right or wrong? Do you use God's standard or your own intuition or something else? And how do you differentiate between what is good, bad, moral, immoral, right, wrong, when you're using the God of the Bible as a moral compass? How do you know that animal sacrifice is wrong? How do you know that it sucks to slam your pinky toe into the coffee table? How do you know that genital mutilation is abhorrent? How do you know punishing other people for something that they had no part in is unjust? How do you know that drowning babies and their families along with them is evil? Because you don't know that any of these things are immoral from modeling yourself after the Christian God. If anything, the God of the Bible is a perfect example of how not to conduct ourselves. But it's true. If everyone were to have the same religion, then we might hope to experience what Jesus of Nazareth promised his followers: harmony, peace, and unity around the world. Yet every day we see the effects of the wars within religion, between religions, and on behalf of religion. And it's because of the self-loving natures of most of these religions that they are incompatible when it comes to variables such as doctrine, rituals, and moral framework. Because religion can only fully reduce the negative baggage if it's the only religion. And let's see, I got one more thing. Okay, so tonight my interlocutor, I'm sure, will repeat two presumptions. Number one is going to be that the God of the Bible exists. And he's going to use that to confirm any conclusion that he comes to. He's going to start off with that as his premise, that the God of the Bible exists, and that he knows this because reasons. And those reasons are either he gets them through revelation and through the Bible, or through natural revelation, or revelation of some sort. But denial of science based on these religious presuppositions and trying to adhere to this dogma, it can and does lead to moral harm. So that is why I believe that atheism is far better than Christianity.
You bet. Thank you very much, Jim. And we will now go into the open discussion section. Just a reminder, gentlemen have their links in the description in case you want to see more of that mustache. Floor is yours.
You're ridiculous, man.
Okay, so did you want me to start asking questions first, or would you like to ask questions?
Oh, sure. I've talked enough.
Oh, no, that's okay. All right, let me see. Where shall I begin here? Well, I presented to you the existence of God in virtue of his revelation in creation and special revelation. Based upon what I understand about your background, is you're formally a Christian and that you're familiar with biblical theology. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you reject, therefore, that the God of the Bible has revealed himself in all of creation, that all facts indicate God, and that he has revealed himself through various individuals infallibly in the Bible? Do you reject that?
I reject that he has revealed himself to me, that he has dealt any revelation to me in particular. I can't say the same for anybody else, that's their own,
Well, you've read the Bible, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you accept that the Bible from Genesis to Revelation is the infallible revelation of God?
No, I do not.
Okay. Then on what grounds do you assert the intelligibility of any proposition or fact? What is your worldview framework? I presented you a worldview and the means by which we can know it through God's revelation. Since you reject that, which is a de facto denial, the non-acceptance of the Christian
you can know what
worldview,
through revelation?
that we can know that God exists and the nature of reality through his natural and special revelation. Now you reject that. Now that's a worldview.
Yes, I reject that if you're asserting that that is part of God's nature and that he exists, because the fact that I have not received any revelation from him is plenty of evidence to suggest that your God is not real, especially if your God is supposed to have revealed himself to everybody. And there's many people watching now who will say the same thing.
Okay. So your position then is Christianity is false and that there is no God. Is that your position? Okay.
Yes, correct.
Okay. I came across a photograph of you at the Atheist Republic holding up a book. Let me just get the title correctly.
I think I was promoting a book.
Yeah, by Armin
Navabi.
Yeah, you were holding up a book called "Why There Is No God." Do you still endorse that book?
No, I don't think that it's the best arguments or the best laid out arguments. At one time, I did believe that they were good arguments, but I've come to find fallacies in some of the quote unquote some people like to call these new atheist arguments.
Okay, do you support the title of the book, that there is no God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, on what
especially
grounds?
when it comes in respect to the Christian God.
Okay, on what grounds, since you reject the revelation of the God of the Bible through natural and special revelation, on what grounds do you assert there is no God?
Well, for one, given your prerequisite that God has revealed himself to everybody if he exists, and since he has not revealed himself to me, therefore he does not exist. That's a simple one.
Well, you would be attempting to critique the Christian God. Your position as an atheist is all encompassing. You deny the concept of all gods. Now, on what grounds there is no ultimate creator God?
You mean besides the Christian God?
Yeah, you're an atheist. Your atheism is the position that there is no God, just like the title of the book. It's the same reason that
you reject Ahura Mazda or Baha or
actually no,
or any other creator deity that is all encompassing.
That's incorrect. The reason why I reject Ahura Mazda, which is the god of Zoroastrianism, is because first and foremost, I have the revelation of the true God. Do you have a revelation of some God that no other gods exist? Because if you don't, then your analogy fails.
No, I don't, and you don't have a revelation.
Then your analogy fails.
From the God, if that God has revealed himself to everybody.
But your analogy
the fact
fails.
That he hasn't revealed himself to just me even shows that you don't even believe in the God that you say you believe in.
Your analogy fails. You said for the same reason. So my first line of reasoning why I reject Ahura Mazda is because of the revelation of God. Since I have identified what is the ultimacy of reality, the God of the Bible, that is why I reject that Ahura Mazda, the God of Zoroastrianism, is the ultimacy. Since you say you reject all gods on the same grounds, then that would entail that you have identified what is ultimate and that it is impersonal. Have you done that?
Yeah. And especially when it comes to gods who claim to be personal, or gods that claim to be omnibenevolent, omnipotent, and omniscient, especially when it comes to those gods.
Okay, so you have identified and you can account for what is ultimate in reality and that it is impersonal?
What do you mean by account for?
Give me a rational justification that what is ultimate, what it is, and that it's impersonal. Can you give me a justification for that? Because if you could do that, then your analogy there, that when you said the same reason why I reject Ahura Mazda. So in other words, in order for you to reject all gods by virtue of analogy of what you've said, you would have to identify and know what is ultimate and that it is impersonal in order to use that as a defeater that there is no God. See, if you can identify what is ultimate is impersonal, then there cannot be a personal ultimacy or absolute, namely God. So what is it that is ultimate and absolute and impersonal?
I justify my reasoning using my reasoning, and like the way that you interpret and perceive your revelation is through your reasoning. So you have a double filter that you have to pass through, whereas I only have a single filter.
Um, I don't think you addressed the question. In order for you to negate the personal absolute God, you're going to have to identify and justify what is ultimate and impersonal. Do you know what the ultimacy of reality that all things that begin derive from?
So you're asking me to justify my epistemology with my epistemology, even though you're justifying your epistemology with ontology?
I didn't ask you about epistemology. I asked you what is ultimate in your metaphysic. Okay, the
The
God,
universe.
you. Okay, so the cosmos is ultimate.
In scale, yeah, I can't think of anything bigger than the
Okay,
cosmos.
ultimate would mean that it's eternal, without
Hmm.
beginning, unconditionally non-dependent and absolute, and the origin of all things that begin. Do you believe the cosmos is eternal?
If it's possible, maybe.
I didn't ask you if it's possible.
I'm not sure.
Whatever is ultimate necessarily exists, and it's not subject to possibility. Possibility is derived from what is ultimate. So is the cosmos
According to whom?
ultimate?
Like, but according to whom though? Like, who says that it has to be eternal? Like, according to what measure?
No, whatever is ultimate by definition will be eternal, because it will be the ground of all existence.
Okay, so how do you assert that it is your God?
Okay, well, we'll get to that. All right, I've already explained that in the beginning, but I'll be glad to get back to that. What I want to know from you is, you tell me you know that a personal, absolute, ultimate creator God does not exist, in virtue that you know that there is something that's impersonal and ultimate, namely the cosmos. How do you know that the cosmos is ultimate and eternal?
I don't know that, but it
Then you
seems to me
haven't
a lot more
falsified the
likely.
then you haven't falsified the existence of a personal, ultimate, absolute. Then have you?
Well, when a personal, yes, one that has agency and intelligence, yes.
How did you falsify that?
Well, in order for to create, one has to have agency. A disembodied mind does not have agency or a medium through which to operate and to create
How
cosmos.
could you possibly know that?
The same way that I know anything, the same way that that you
You
know it's
know,
safe
do
to
you
cross the
know
street.
through
You use
you
your
know what
reasoning and
so you know what the attributes and properties of what the ultimate is, by virtue of just everyday sense experience?
according to your worldview, it's an uncaused, timeless, spaceless, immaterial, all-powerful, personal creator
No, we're
that is an
talking about
intelligent mind.
Jim, right now we're talking about the concept of God versus atheism, an
Hmm.
ultimacy of reality that is absolute, ultimate, eternal, and it is personal. You say that does not exist. Now, how do you know what the properties are or are not in terms of what is ultimate? By what means do you have access to that?
My reasoning.
Okay, well, let's hear it.
It's just my reasoning. The same
Okay.
way that you do anything, you depend on your senses and your perception to get through life and to do any activity. You don't rely on revelation to do it. As in fact, I would challenge you to give me one thing that you depend solely on revelation for.
You're not addressing my question. What are the one or more of the central properties and attributes of what is an ultimate?
I don't think that there has to be an ultimate. I think that that's a
Well,
presumption that
you
you're
not
making.
okay. Well, in order for you to know that there's not a personal ultimate, you're going to have to know that there's an impersonal ultimate. Do you know
There
that
doesn't
there's
have
an
to be an impersonal ultimate
impersonal?
either. There doesn't have to be an ultimate period.
Okay, so then derivational things don't derive from anything.
Yes, they do, but there's no reason
What
for
do
us to
they
draw a line
what
anywhere.
do
Like,
they ultimately derive
neither of us
from,
have
Jim?
justification to draw a line and say this is where
You're
it
not
stops.
you're just being verbose. You're not addressing the question. Maybe you're not understanding it. Now, you told me that
Maybe I'm
you
not.
know that there is no personal absolute. You could only excuse me, you could only assert that is if you knew what was ultimate that was impersonal. So my question to you is, do you know what is ultimate and impersonal?
That is a false dichotomy because you're asserting that something has to be ultimate.
No. You told me earlier you accepted that there was something that was impersonal and ultimate. So which is it now? It seems that you're flipping now.
Well, I was misunderstanding what you meant by ultimate, and I apologize for that.
Oh, that's okay. I'll repeat it again. What is ultimate is, excuse me, I gotta get something to drink. My mouth is dry.
Do want to mention though.
What?
Go ahead.
Yeah. What is ultimate? What is ultimate is that which is the ground of all existence. It is eternal, it's absolute, it's unconditionally non-dependent, and all things that begin to exist derive from it. Now, you can either accept that what is ultimate is personal, you can accept that what is ultimate is impersonal, or you can go the suicidal path of saying that you do not accept that anything is ultimate.
Okay, I will say that there's something that is impersonal. It is, as far as I know, as far as anybody knows, it's the universe. It could possibly be something pre-existing the universe, but I'm not sure.
Well, in order for you to know that there cannot be a personal ultimate, you're going to have to know that its negation exists. The negation of a personal
you saying that,
absolute.
that my knowledge depends on it?
No, your position is that there is no ultimate creator God. Right? Yep. Now, in order for you to falsify and negate that, you're going to have to know that there is an impersonal ultimate, which would constitute the negation of the personal absolute. Right? So,
in order to
what
prove
is it?
That there's not a personal unicorn, do you have to prove that there's an impersonal unicorn?
This is a category error. Okay, what we're talking about? No, you're making a category error between what is ultimate.
You're applying attributes to God.
That, right. Jim.
One sec. Hold on, Jim. Duncan, I just want to be sure that Jim gets a chance to respond, just because it's there's a decent amount to unpack. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Duncan.
Were you?
Yeah, you're making a category error. We're not talking about temporal entities. We're talking about what is the ground of all existence. Now, either from your worldview, you're going to be operating from square one, that what is ultimate is personal or not personal, in virtue of the law of non-contradiction and excluded middle. Now, your position is that you know there is no God, there is no personal ultimate, by virtue of knowing that what is ultimate is impersonal. That is your defeater. Is that correct?
Well, if the universe didn't exist, that law wouldn't exist either. So, I mean,
I'm asking you, is that your defeater?
Hold on.
Okay.
Just to be sure that he got a chance to respond. Just because he was still talking, do you have anything more to say, Jim?
No, I was just saying that if the universe didn't exist, then things like the law of identity, would that exist?
The law of identity reflects the nature and character of God's mind from a Christian worldview. However, what I'm trying to get at, your position is there is no God, there is no personal absolute. In order to falsify A, you're going to have to defend not A. In order to falsify that there's a personal absolute, you're going to have to establish that there is an impersonal absolute. Do you understand?
But you still haven't told me why there has to be an absolute.
Okay.
Personal or impersonal.
Without an absolute, then you're not going to be able to have coherence and intelligibility for derivational facts, because then they wouldn't depend upon anything. A fact in question will either be ultimate or not ultimate. A fact in question will either be unconditionally non-dependent, which we refer to as what is ultimate, or it will be dependent. If you deny that anything is ultimate, that it is unconditionally non-dependent, then it will be meaningless and unintelligible to talk about dependent facts. So it's philosophically suicidal to reject that there is an ultimacy. It's not a path you want to go down. We're not talking about physics.
And like in the history of the universe, you go back to the singularity back when the laws of physics.
We're not discussing that. You're changing the subject.
Hold on.
But
well,
no, hang on. But nothing is objective or absolute at that point, whether in physics, truth, or morality, even in the Christian worldview. And the only reason that they exist, according to you, is because God deviated from an eternal constant.
Jim, you're not addressing my point.
You assert that he exists eternally, and he's an absolute, yet at some point he decided that he's going to make a universe.
Okay, Jim, is your objection that there is an eternal, ultimate, absolute personal God? Is it because that what is ultimate is impersonal, or is it your position is that there is no ultimacy or ground of all existence?
My position is that the premise that the best explanation for the cause of the universe existing is God is a non sequitur, that it does not follow, because
Jim, you're not addressing my question.
How am I not?
You're talking past my question. You do not accept that there is a personal, absolute creator God. Now, you say that does not exist. Now, you will either say that it does not exist because what is ultimate and absolute is impersonal, negating a personal absolute, or your position is that there is nothing is ultimate. Which is your position, Jim?
Nothing is ultimate or absolute. Nothing that I know of.
Oh. Okay. Is that your assertion? There is nothing that's ultimate?
Yes, to my knowledge.
Okay, then you live in a world of chance, where all events are just simply spontaneous. You have no grounding to assert anything. You have now that you have asserted that nothing is ultimate or absolute, you live in a complete world of complete relativity. In other words, you have no grounding for anything. You will have any fact that you assert, there will be no reason why it exists.
Where does God get justification for his beliefs?
Okay. Can you address my question? How do you have grounding? How do you have grounding to say anything at all as an atheist when there's no ultimate? Okay, when you assert there is no God, by implication you are claiming to possess by implication the capacity to reason. But if there's no absolute, if there's no ultimate, you have no grounding for reason. Reason has no intelligibility. So you have destroyed your ability to communicate.
But if knowledge is a justified belief, and God can't justify his beliefs, or doesn't have justification for his beliefs, then how could his revelation possibly produce knowledge?
You're changing the subject. Okay.
No, I'm not. I'm directly addressing the Christian God, and I'm showing you that you're engaging in special.
No, what you're doing is you're tap dancing and you're dodging. You are evading my line of questioning.
I'm directly addressing.
I will be glad to address to you how God can know or believe things. I'm more than happy to discuss that. I discuss that on a regular basis on the internet. Your position, you have already rejected the Christian worldview, and I want to see if the denial of the Christian worldview is intelligible. So, in your rejection of the Christian worldview, do you have grounds to affirm or deny anything in a world where there is nothing ultimate or absolute?
Of course, I obviously do. I made it to the debate on time. I'm wearing my shirt button. My tails are matching up. I comb my hair. I think I did okay today.
Are all those states of affairs unconditionally non-dependent, or does their existence derive from a greater context?
No, they are dependent. They are dependent on causal events.
Right. So their intelligibility depends upon its outermost context. What would that be? Since there's nothing ultimate, you have no ultimate context for facts, do you?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I have properly basic beliefs. I have my own presuppositions.
Okay. When you say that, those are non-derivational facts. They're uninterpreted facts because you have no outer context for that. Do they explain themselves? Are they ultimate in themselms?
And you don't have any outer context for God's beliefs.
Wait. Are you now?
Well, Jim was speaking there. I just want to be able to hear him.
You don't have an outer justification for God's justification of his beliefs. So
how do you
just
know
like my presuppositions cannot be verified on anything prior, yours can't either.
How do you know I don't have a justification?
Oh, I would love for you to tell me where God just gets
No,
justification.
you
for
just
his
made a
beliefs.
claim. You just told me that I don't have a justification. Do you
I
know?
know
Do you
you
know?
don't, but if you
Do
think
you
you do, I would
know?
like to
Hold
hear
on
Do
a
it.
you
second. Hold on a
know?
second.
Do,
Let's give Jim a chance. Just want to hear from Jim for a second.
I would like for you to answer just one question, just that one. Where does God get justification for his belief?
God doesn't need justification because he is what we call in theology archetypal knowledge versus human knowledge, which is ectypal. Ectypal
Okay.
knowledge or belief states are derived. Okay, because we're not omniscient, because God is omniscient and he innately knows the truth value of all propositions. God's knowledge is not derived because he's omniscient. Now, I've answered your question. Now,
And who prescribed him those
let
attributes?
me I answered your question. Now, the
Okay.
problem that you have is you want to make a denial. There is no God. But your worldview does not have the framework or the foundation for affirmation and denials because nothing is ultimate. There is nothing that's absolute.
Then nothing has to be absolute, Duncan.
Okay, if in your worldview, your position is nothing is ultimate or absolute.
Not that nothing is, but it's not necessary.
What is your position?
It is not
anything is there anything that's necessary in your worldview
that is absolute?
Okay, if you're not aware of anything that's absolute, then your words are meaningless. They're not grounded in anything.
If my words are meaningless, then how are you understanding me?
No, because you live in God's world. I'm saying your words are meaningless with respect to your system that you are claiming. You are claiming that you have a foundationless system. You want to invoke dependent facts, but they ultimately do not depend upon anything. Now, are the facts that you speak here arbitrary, or do they have an ultimate and final grounding?
They're just as arbitrary as yours.
Okay, are you conceding here tonight that your worldview and all of the dependent statements that are derived from it are entirely arbitrary?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you just admitted that your atheism is irrational.
Just like yours, Duncan.
Okay, then, but that would be another irrational statement because you just admitted that all your statements are arbitrary and irrational.
Oh, okay. So you're gonna do this then because well, yours are also irrational. So you saying that I'm irrational is irrational. So therefore, I'm rational.
Does your worldview, in your denial of the Christian God, do you have a metaphysical foundation by which you can affirm or deny anything?
I'm sorry, that's irrational. I don't understand what you're saying.
Okay, I think you understood what I said. You're playing games now.
No, well, and you're gauging in special pleading. I'm showing you the.
No, there's no. What was the special pleading, Jim?
Well, you have not shown where God gets his beliefs or his morals.
That's not special pleading, Jim. When I asked you the question, I asked.
One second. I did need we do need to hear the rest of his response there. I don't think he was done yet. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, did God create logic? God cannot exude falsehood. He can't lie, right?
That's correct.
So does either God has justification for his belief and his actions, or he doesn't, or they're dependent on him.
If God is omniscient, why does he need justification?
I do want to be sure that Jim was finished. Were you finished there, Jim, or are you still going?
Is God omniscient? Is that a claim you're making?
Yeah, the God of the Bible is omniscient. But the point I'm trying to get from you is whatever objections you make, whatever affirmations or denial, does your worldview provide for it ultimately and foundationally?
It's not necessary.
So it's not. Why isn't it necessary? So in other words, you feel comfortable with just simply making arbitrary declarations?
They're not arbitrary. They're relative.
Okay.
They may seem. I guess you can call them arbitrary if you're wanting to grossly mischaracterize it. But sure.
Are your affirmations and denials from your worldview, are they ultimately arbitrary, or do they have an ultimate and foundational grounding?
They have a foundational grounding, but not an ultimate one. It's not necessary.
That's a contradiction in terms. I use the word foundational as a synonym for ultimate.
Oh, well, you didn't tell me that. So if you're going to conflate
okay,
terms,
what is do you have an ultimate? Do you have when I say foundational, I mean ultimate. Do you have an ultimate or foundational grounding for anything you affirm or deny in your atheistic worldview?
My presuppositions.
Okay, your presuppositions are not ontology. What is your ontology that would be ultimate, that would be a basis for you to affirm and deny things?
But you still haven't explained why an ultimate is necessary.
Okay, because then you're going to be left with a complete arbitrary system.
How so?
Because then you have no foundation.
What is it? Okay, so what is God's foundation?
God's foundation is himself. He's ase. Have you ever heard that term?
Oh.
You're a former Christian.
Okay.
God
okay.
is ase.
Then my presuppositions don't need one.
Okay. So you're omniscient?
My presuppositions are, I guess.
Oh, your presuppositions are omniscient? So you know all things? You see what you're doing.
You mean
is
like
you're
past,
making
present,
one
and future? Is that what you mean by omniscient?
Listen, you're just rambling here.
Just to be sure, I want to hear just from Jim for a second there.
Are you talking past, present, and future omniscient?
I'm asking you, are you omniscient now?
I'm asking you what you mean by omniscient, since you like to conflate terminology. I'm trying to get a definition.
Are you omniscient?
Are you talking about past, present, and future knowledge?
I'm talking about, do you know all states of affairs? Do you know the truth value of all propositions?
Is that past, present, and future? Is that what you're saying?
Knowing the truth value of all propositions would include that. Do you know that?
No. Does your God?
Okay. So yes, he does. Now, since you're not omniscient, okay, what is your ultimate grounding for anything you affirm?
Well, I affirm that your God isn't real and cannot exist, because if he knew all, then it would have been a moral act for him to have created anything to begin with.
Jim, you need to focus. That's not an answer to my question.
It is an answer to your question. You said,
no,
what
it was a response. No, it was a response, but it was not an answer to my question. Now, I ask you, what is it that is ultimate and foundational in order for you to even attempt to make any affirmations or denial? Or are your affirmations and denial, whatever they be, utterly groundless and foundationless?
It's not necessary, Duncan, for me to have something foundational, because I'm on the internet talking to you hundreds of miles away apart from each other, and I'm functioning perfectly fine. Yet okay. I'm not relying on revelation.
So you're saying the world around you?
Are you using revelation?
Am I using revelation? All of God's creation.
Are you using revelation to talk to me right now?
All of God's creation is revelatory in natural revelation. Now, what I want to know from you is you're telling me I answered your question. I answered your question. Now you told me that the world works in a certain way. So you do not live in a world where all events are spontaneous and unrelated and unconnected to each other? Are you denying that?
Sure.
Okay. So you believe all events are unrelated and unconnected to each other?
I don't perceive things on a quantum level. I perceive things on a macro level. So
okay. Which is your world? Do you live in a world? Do you live in a world from which you are speaking here tonight? Do you live in a world where all events are unconnected and unrelated and have no causal relations to each other, or not?
Nope.
I'm not understanding your answer.
How are you not understanding? I think you're understanding exactly what I mean, but you're wanting to shy away from defending your view, because you know that you're in the exact same position that I am, Duncan.
Actually, I did defend my worldview in the beginning, but you categorically rejected the revelation of God. Now we're going to see if the denial. May I finish, please?
Yeah, sure. I will let
you are familiar with the natural revelation and special revelation of the Christian God. You have categorically rejected that. Okay, since you reject the revelation of God, I'm not going to give you any other further information, because that's all you need. Since you reject that, then you deem that your denial thereof is viable. My position is you cannot deny the Christian worldview or any other fact, because you're going to need a grounding to do so. Now, what I'd like to know is this. You have gone on record saying that you do not accept that anything is ultimate. If nothing is ultimate, then what do any of your facts depend upon? The answer is nothing. You have a chain that leads nowhere.
Okay. Well, I use the exact same the exact same organs that you do to make decisions, the exact same decision-making processes. I mean, I don't
So
understand
the
what you
world
think is so
around you,
different about
so the
you
world,
being a Christian and me being an atheist and being able to function.
so the world around you right now operates in terms of causality and laws of nature. Is that your position?
Yeah, if I let go of this pen, it drops. I know that.
Okay. So do you know that there are universals and laws?
Sure, and I can demonstrate them. Can you
Okay.
demonstrate to
Okay.
me your
Okay.
foundational?
Well, God has already demonstrated himself, but you have rejected that. Now,
No, that is your
can you
claim.
tell
And
me?
since he
Can you
hasn't,
tell me how you are able to ascertain that there are laws or universal? By what means?
I
well,
do want
I
to
can
get.
ascertain that your God is not real based on your definition of him. You said that God
Yeah,
has.
you're not listening.
Hold
Everybody.
on,
Jim,
you
you're
hold
not
on.
listening.
Hold on.
To me,
Jim's not
therefore,
done
your
yet.
God does not exist.
Jim, you're not listening to my question. I keep on asking questions and you give an answer to that I'm asking. How are you
Okay.
able to ascertain? You're making assertion about how the world is in your God-free world. What I want to know from
Whenever
you
I
is
can ask
how
a
do you
question, just let me
know?
know.
May I finish, please? Here,
Yeah,
I'll
sure.
ask the question. How do you know that the world around in your God-free world, how do you know that there are laws or universal? By what means?
A priori evidence, experience.
What does that even well take your pick. Is it through sense experience or is it just through your thinking?
Wait, it can only be through one?
I'd like to know, how do you know that there are universals?
I just told you.
All right, go ahead, explain it.
Okay, first of all, they're not universal because the laws of physics broke down around the singularity, and they will likely break down again. They are temporary.
Hold on. We have to give him a chance to respond.
The laws of physics and the laws of logic
What laws?
are temporary.
Then what I'm asking you, if they're laws, then they're what we call in philosophy universals. Okay, the laws and universals are synonyms of each other. Do they exist? Do they exist?
Yes. On our scale, yes.
Okay. Now, on what basis do you say that there are laws and universals? Is it through sense experience?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, you can't see laws or universals. You can only see particulars, Jim.
I can observe them. Yes, I can.
No, okay. You're not getting this. You cannot see.
No, universals. I can observe them. Look, Jim, watch. This is gravity. Watch. That's gravity.
Jim,
okay?
Jim, you're making an elementary mistake that many atheists do. Jim, if I visit every country of the world and I see white swans without seeing one black swan, and I come back to you and I say, because of the consistency of events, all swans are white, is that a fallacy?
Yeah.
Okay, you've committed that same fallacy. You would be
justified in believing.
May I finish, please, Jim? I'm trying to explain to you how you've committed a fallacy. It's the fallacy of induction. You are using induction. Okay, you are using induction.
Right.
Appealing
like
to
when
the
you start off with the premise that God
Jim,
exists.
may I finish, please? Because you're not understanding your mistake,
and then
I'm trying to explain it to you.
Fuck.
Yeah, you can when I get done explaining your fallacy.
Sure, go ahead.
Now, you're telling me that there are universals by an appeal to induction, by observing the part. You're saying the whole conforms to the part. That's called induction. Is that how you're justifying laws and universals, Jim?
I'm not answering another question. You can answer some of my questions.
I'd like an answer to my question that you've been dodging.
Well, I don't care what you would like. I would like to be.
Then your claim that there are laws and physics are arbitrary. They're without rational basis.
I think what will.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that you are simply confused. My mental state of not believing in your God is the exact same thing as him not existing, because you say that your God is a God that exists or he doesn't exist, and if he exists, then everybody knows about him. And the fact that I don't know about him, even just me, not much less everybody else, is plenty of evidence to suggest that your God does not exist.
So are you employing that reason right now?
Yeah.
What are the ultimate grounds for reason then? How does your world provide for that?
Why do you keep saying ultimate? Okay, do you have an ultimate grounds whenever you cross the street?
Yes.
Okay, and what is it?
God.
Explain to me how God crosses the street for you, or he helps you cross the street.
God created, all facts are created by facts by God, and God sustains all facts. Now, what I want to know from you, in your God-free
are you
world.
seriously going to ask me another question?
Of course, because you're not answering my other questions.
No, how about you let me ask a question? How about that?
I've been answering all your questions.
No, you haven't.
Actually, I have. What would you like to ask me?
You answer partly a very short.
Ask me some questions, and then I'll go back to answering your questions.
That I asked to answer your question.
Good. Ask me a question. Go away.
You can stop over talking me. Okay, I'm not going to do this whole interrupting thing. We can have a productive conversation.
Good. Ask me questions. Or you can continue
to act childish. Okay, are you done acting childish?
I'm being assertive. Ask me questions.
No, you are acting very childish.
Jim, ask your questions. I'm not afraid of answering your questions. Obviously, you are afraid of answering mine.
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm tired of answering them and without being able to ask.
You haven't been answering my questions.
Okay,
you've been dodging them.
Now is a chance that you can ask the questions, Jim. And
how do you know that the revelation that you receive is correct when you have to depend on reasoning in order to interpret that revelation?
How do I know it's correct? Because it is through God's revelation. That's how I know anything. The way that I know anything, is going to be in virtue of God's revelation. Because in the Christian worldview, nothing can be known that is independent of God's revelatory acts. If I answered otherwise to you, then you could fault me for an inconsistency and to a contradiction of the Christian worldview. So the way that I know anything at all is through God's revelatory and providential acts.
Not anything at all, but that it's correct. How do you know that what you're receiving is correct?
How I know it's correct is through God's revelation, and the denial thereof leads to absurdity. It's a reductio ad absurdity. How do you know that the external physical world is real? There are causal connections and laws of nature. Because if you deny it, it will consequently result in absurdity. The denial thereof is impossible. It is impossible to deny the revelation of God. That is how I know that it is correct. Now, I've had any other questions.
You can't ask me a question and answer it for me. You can't ask me a question and answer it for me, Duncan.
Do you have any other questions for me, Jim?
Sure. How do you justify saying that the universe has to have a cause, therefore God?
I didn't say that.
So you don't believe that God is the best explanation for the cause of the universe?
That's not what I said. I said that God exists, and I know this in virtue of his revelatory actions.
Okay, and I asked you how you perceive those revelatory actions. And
I receive those revelations, God's revelatory actions, through the means that he created, which is his creation, my sense perception, my reason, through communicating with various individuals across the course of human history, and sovereignly securing that message down to the very words gets to us infallibly. Now, do you have any more questions before I get to mine?
If God created like the laws of logic and physics, how do you know that you are implementing them correctly, that you're receiving and implementing them correctly?
Okay, God did not create the laws of logic. The laws of logic are a reflection of God's eternal nature and his actions. So when God creates and he sustains entities, they are a reflection of his being. God cannot exude that which is false. He creates and upholds. I'm answering you. In Hebrews 3, it states that Christ upholds all things by the power of his will. God cannot exude or sustain that which is false. Any other questions?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay. Now, your position is that you not only deny Christianity, you deny that there's a personal, absolute creator God. So merely dismissing Christianity for whatever rationale that you may have will not get you to the coherence or intelligibility of atheism, that there is no personal, absolute creator God. Now, what I want to know from you, from my initial question, on what grounds do you assert that there is no ultimate creator God?
Because there is no reason to believe that there is.
Okay, it doesn't follow that you don't have a reason that there is no creator God. Kai Nielsen, a very famous atheist author, and I will paraphrase him, said, all of the reasons for God may fail, but it still may be the case that God exists. So the fact that you claim that you are unacquainted with sufficient reasons for God's existence, it doesn't follow from that God doesn't exist. So how is it that there is no God? Okay, I didn't say you wrote the book.
Atheism
Good,
is
but
not
it's a worthy quote. Now, it doesn't follow that you don't have a reason for God, that there is no God. So do you have any other line of reasoning that there is no God?
There is no reason to believe that there is, just like there's no reason to believe that there is a tooth fairy.
Okay.
I mean, is there, like, for example, how do you know that the tooth fairy doesn't exist? Is it because there's no reason to believe that it does exist, or because you performed?
I have I have a good reason. Because I have a good reason to believe that the tooth fairy doesn't.
Hold on one sec. Just to hear the rest of that question, because he was midway through his question. Go ahead, Jim.
No, it's fine. Well, what is this good reason that you have for?
I have a good reason not to believe in the tooth fairy, because
can I finish a sentence?
I thought you were done.
Go ahead and answer it.
We have good reasons not to believe in the tooth fairy, because if the tooth fairy did exist, what we would expect to find is that little children all over the world would be finding money underneath their pillows for which their parents had absolutely no explanation for. Okay. Now, your comparison with a temporal object is not it's a category error, because what we're talking about is the ground of all existence. Now, what I'd like to know from you, right? Your position isn't simply, oh, I don't have a reason to believe in God. Your position necessarily, your position necessarily entails the falsity of a personal ultimate God. And what I want to know from you is, I'm not done yet.
I'm not going to have you ask me another question. Like, you can't.
I want to know. I'd like to finish the question
and then not allow me to rebut.
I'd like to know.
No, you cannot not allow me to rebut.
May I get my question out? If you want to keep over talking
me and steamrolling me because you're scared,
I answered all
that's
your
fine.
questions.
But if you're not scared, then let me finish.
I'm not scared of anything. Well,
then
what you're doing right now is you're being rude.
Then let me rebut.
I didn't get the question.
I can't rebut. Are you refusing me
so what you're going to be argumentative now as a ploy?
Yes, it's a debate.
No, you're being argumentative. That's not debating.
You're damn right I am, because yes, you're damn right I am, because
gentlemen,
you are.
What we're going to do? Hold on. Let's give Jim a chance. Give him a chance to respond.
I was speaking.
We'll come right back to you.
I was speaking, James.
Right. So one challenge though is, like, if you do say if you, let's say, like, give a couple of sentences or kind of propositions, and then immediately after ask a question, the conversation can move so fast that as Jim's answering the question, if you ask him another question, he can't go back to those original propositions that you stated at the start.
Yeah. Well, he cut me off in midstream of asking my question.
Okay. Well, it's been a rough and tumble one, so I'm going to kind of let it fly and let Jim answer.
Well, this generally happens with atheists when they have no answers.
No, it generally happens with you. You can go look at any of my debates. This doesn't happen with anybody else. Never has
That's because you probably don't get the tough questions that I'm giving you that you can't answer.
I don't get jerks.
Okay, I'm not really concerned whether you think I'm a jerk or not.
What we'll do is,
but I am interested.
What we do want to do, hold on. So just to go back to that, if you do remember the propositions, Jim, we'll give you a chance to respond to those before Duncan asks the next question that he was going to ask.
Okay.
Now, you're...
No, Duncan,
I'd like to finish.
Saying... Well, I
was speaking when he cut me off.
Okay, hold on.
This happened the last week.
You were trying to ask me another question.
Hold on
and
a
I was
second.
wanting to rebut.
But listen, it's just that I do have to, like, there are times at which each of you have cut each other off, and so I do have to, sometimes it's like, okay, we're gonna give Jim a chance to respond right now. So.
Oh, so you're gonna let his rude interjection while I was asking my question?
No, don't let me respond. Jim, it's fine. Just here on out. That's all I ask, is that I get a chance to rebut. Go ahead, Duncan.
Okay, you previously had stated that God does not exist because you don't have a reason for God. Well, it doesn't necessarily. That's exactly what you said. It's on the video.
No reason to suggest that there is a God.
Okay, is God does not exist because you don't have a reason to believe in God? Is that your position?
There's no reason to suggest that a God exists. Just like you said that with the tooth fairy, you don't believe in that tooth fairy because we don't see evidence of money being dispersed around, that the parents don't leave. Just like with this God of creation, the God who committed a global flood and who's supposed to be a personal and loving God, yet everything that we see is contrary to that.
Well, first of all, now you're baiting and switching. Now you're switching from
I'm
a
not baiting
general
and switching. I'm giving
May
you
I
the reason I
finish,
don't
please?
believe.
May I finish, please? Yeah, you are baiting and switching.
Okay,
You're
whatever.
going back to the God of the Bible. Now, I offered a defeater for the
Which God are
tooth
you
fairy,
talking about?
Okay, Jim, please don't be rude. Okay.
This is Christianity versus atheism.
Yeah, Jim, that's right. And I'm questioning you right now about your atheism. Okay. Now, I gave you the opportunity to ask me a series of questions. And I kept on saying, "Are you done? Are you done?" And you finally said, "You're done." So it's my turn.
So that means
to
I don't
ask
get any
you
more
about,
questions.
Okay. Oh, so you're going to be rude again.
Okay.
See, this is a common experience that I have with atheists. I had it last week with Shannon Q.
Hold on
and
a
I'm having
second.
it with you now.
Hold on a second.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's a common denominator there, Duncan.
What we would like to do is
it's called atheists.
We'll
okay.
It sounds like, Duncan, do you have a question that you were going to ask to Jim?
Yeah. Jim said earlier that God, any God, creator God, does not exist because he does not have a reason for that. It does not necessarily follow because he doesn't have a reason that there is no absolute creator God. Okay. Is it your position that there is no God?
No, yes, it is, but you're mischaracterizing my
okay.
my
Can
reasoning.
Can you give me your argument as to why there is no absolute creator God?
Sure, if you'd let me.
I'm waiting.
Okay, because there's no reason to suggest that not only is it did an intelligent agent be the cause of the universe, but there's no reason to suggest that a deity was the cause. And additionally, there's no reason to suggest and go the additional step and say, well, not only is it that God, but it is my God, and it's the only God. You make a bunch of unjustified leaps.
I didn't hear an argument that there's no God. All I heard you tell me is that you don't have reasons to believe in a God. Are you omniscient?
No.
Do you know all of the possible reasons that there could be for a God?
No. Do you?
Okay. Actually, no, I'm not omniscient. But since you don't know all possible reasons for a God, there still could be a God, couldn't there?
Can you think of one?
I asked you a question.
There could be, sure, but there's no reason to suggest.
Good. Now you contradicted yourself because your previous position was there is no God. There could, because when you assert there is no God, then there could be, because you said there is none.
Could there be a unicorn?
Yes.
Okay. Are you saying that unicorns exist?
No, I'm not.
So you don't believe in unicorns, or you do believe in unicorns?
No, I do not believe that there are unicorns. I don't.
Okay, I do not believe that there are gods.
But unfortunately, you're making a category error between.
No, I am not.
May I finish, please? Yes, you are. I will explain to you. I am shocked that you don't understand the category error, because God is not a temporal dependent entity. He is what is ultimate and eternal, the ground of all existence. So you've made a category error. Now, if
he interact with
belief, may I finish, please? Okay. Your position.
Rebutting.
Your position.
Hold on.
Your position.
Okay.
Your position. May I finish, please?
Sure. If you'll allow me.
Your position is that there is no ultimate God. So you're either going to have to establish. Okay. Yeah. Why don't you interrupt me again? See, you atheists are so rude.
So, well, hold on.
And then you complain about people like myself being assertive, correcting you when you're being obnoxious.
Hold on a second. But to be fair, Darth, like, there were times at which Jim was talking and then you had cut in. So I do want to be sure Jim gets a chance to respond, because I know that, and I don't blame you for being passionate, but just to be sure that Jim does get a chance to respond. I can see that. So, for example, like the last one, I think he was trying to sneak it in before you started with another point or argument. So it is, like, if Jim has a question, I think we're getting around to that time, or it'd be good to give him a chance
still waiting
to
for an answer as to why there's no God from him, and all I get is double talk.
Well, okay, I'll give you an answer. First of all, it's not double talk. I don't believe that there is a creator God or a personal God, because there is no evidence where we would expect there to be evidence, such as we would expect a creator God like the one that we're arguing tonight, the God of Christianity. So I will be talking about the God of the Bible, does not exist. Number one, due to the problem of evil, both natural and moral evil. The fact that God could not create a better plan than to create two beings who couldn't even make it one generation before screwing up, and then he curses all of humanity in a generational curse, punishing other people for the sins of others, drowns the world, does a series of cataclysmic extinction events, Sodom and Gomorrah, and the Tower of Babel, and all because that was the best he could do. And for an omniscient and omnipotent and an omnibenevolent being, that does not even begin to toe the bar. And that is why
that doesn't get you to atheism. All that tells me is you're having an emotional hissy fit about what the God of the Bible did. Now, what I'd like to know from you is, okay, do you know what is ultimate, Jim?
If you want to do an atheism versus deism argument, you should.
Do you know what is ultimate, Jim?
I don't believe that there is anything ultimate.
Okay, all right. Now, if nothing is ultimate, then the facts that come out of your mouth have no grounding, do they, Jim?
You keep saying that, but you haven't justified that.
You didn't answer my question.
Hold on a second.
You're giving me a typical evasive response.
I do want to give him a chance to respond.
Yeah, well, he responded, but it wasn't an answer to my question.
It doesn't make any sense, because your God prescribes these laws and these moral commands.
You're not addressing my question, dude.
Hold on a second. I know, but we don't want to cut each other off.
Yeah, keeps on coming back to my God. We're addressing his atheism.
It's like
if grounded in something that has no grounding.
He's already gone on record rejecting the God of the Bible. What I'm attempting to show by questioning his worldview, that he has no grounds or foundation to say anything, and he keeps on going back to attacking Christianity. We already know that he rejects Christianity. Please do not overtalk me, Jim. Okay, I'm not done yet.
Then stick to the topic.
Okay, please do not overtalk me, Jim. Now, I want to know from you. You said there's no evidence for an absolute ultimate creator God. Well, to say there's no evidence for a God is a conclusion. You could only say that is if you first knew that there is no God. Do you know that there are no causal relations?
Causal relations don't equal God.
May I finish, please? Again,
you asked me a question. Can I not answer a question?
Yeah,
I can't answer a question.
But
Jim, let me get the question out.
To be fair, like, that was like, you did ask a question and Jim was answering.
I didn't finish the question.
Well,
yeah, and you didn't give me a chance to rebut your comment.
Every time I try to get the question out, you interrupt me midstream.
Because your question is always followed up
from your ask the question.
It definitely sounded like you asked
because you comment and then you follow up with a question. And you don't give me a chance to rebut.
I'd like to get my question out.
I don't give a fuck.
This is ridiculous, James. James, I would appreciate if you would exercise a little bit more moderation. This is inevitably what these atheists do.
Go.
They get rude.
Let's go to Q&A. How about that for moderation?
Okay, I'm trying a Q&A right now, and you keep on
no. We're gonna go to Q&A. I'm with Q.
You told me there's no evidence for God.
Hold on a second.
But I'd like to know.
Hold on a second. Hold on. This is like the natural time at which we would go to Q&A. So
every time I ask a question, I get cut off. And when I don't get cut off, he answers a question that I did not ask.
Listen,
it'll be all right.
This is typically what atheists do.
It'll be all right. It's grounded
Jim
in something,
right? Jim is a prime example of it.
Let's see here. Just catching up on. So thanks for your questions, folks. We do want to remind you, each of the gentlemen have their links in the description. And thanks so much. We're going to move through these fast. We have a lot of questions, so I appreciate it, folks. Stephen Steen says, sexiest lineup on modern day debate.
Thanks for letting me get my question out, James.
Yes, you asked a lot of questions. I definitely let you get a lot of questions out.
Which he cut me off on most of them, and the rest of them he didn't even answer them. He answered with another answer.
I doubt it was. First of all, I think there was a lot of cutting off going on in both directions, and so Jim hasn't. I'd say you did cut him off as well, so keep that in mind. So Steve.
Not as an obstructionist tactic as he was doing.
Gotcha. Okay.
You're cutting James off.
Now, let's see. So we appreciate your questions, folks. I'm going to try to fly through as many as we can. Steven, he was complimenting you. He said, sexiest lineup on modern day debate of all time. I do propose so. That's pretty sick. Thanks, Steven. And I'm sure he's referring he's specifically referring to you, Duncan. So Brian Stevens, thanks for your question. They said, I know that the God of the Bible doesn't exist. It has been revealed to me by the prime mover. We'll give you a chance to respond to that, Duncan, if you'd like.
Well, what are the properties and attributes of these prime movers? Whenever somebody rejects the revelation of the God that exists, they attempt to erect an idolatrous conceptualization of the God of the Bible. But it's impossible to match the God of the Bible's properties and attribute sets because they are unique to him. Okay. Now,
Gotcha.
I can give a much longer explanation, but this is a typical atheist canard that they pull.
Gotcha. Thanks so much.
May I ask what attribute of God is unique to him?
That he is triune.
That he is triune, or that he's just like multiple gods in one? Because the Hindu god Brahman is a sort of trinity.
No, that's false. The God of Hinduism is a monistic God. All is one, one is all. You don't know your Hinduism.
No.
Next up, thanks for your question.
I do actually.
No, actually, you don't.
Next up,
Okay.
Math Pig, thanks for your super chat.
You're right.
They said, sorry I'm late. Check out that stash, Jim. I think they like your stash. Next up, Joyce. Joey Spinoza, thanks for your super chat. They said, fun night. I'm no longer bored. So glad. I definitely was not bored. This was a wild one. Thanks so much, God's servant, who says, question for Jim. Excellent. They said, friend, where do you derive your morality from, if not from just your opinion? And how do you justify your position?
Who's the question to?
To Jim.
Wait.
They said
It's not just my opinion. It's based on many things. Some I'm sure that I'm born with that are that are biologically evolved. But other things are learned socially, and you adapt to the cultures that you go to. For example, if you live in an Eastern country for a long enough time, then you will develop certain habits that aren't typical here. Maybe you'll bow to people, or you'll take off your shoes before you walk inside, or something like that. So something that's not typical to the culture that you came from. Something that is seen moral in one place and or right in one place and wrong in another, or showing the bottom of a foot, whatever. It's all relative. There's nothing that is hinged on anything ultimate, because there's so much diversity. That's plenty of reason to suggest that to be true.
And if nothing is ultimate, then how can you say anything is true?
Wait, hold on one sec. Just to get through as many questions as we can, I'll let you ask one question because Jim just asked you a question during the Q&A. So we do have to move right after Jim answers that question, though. We do have to go back into the Q&A.
Yeah. If nothing is ultimate or absolute, how can you say anything is true, Jim?
Well, I mean, are we talking objective truth? I mean, I don't think we can say that anything is
no. I just said
true.
If nothing is ultimate, how do you say anything is true?
We have to give him a chance to respond.
When I say true, I mean true in the sense that it comports to reality.
Okay, how do you know what the nature of reality is?
Hold on, we said that it was just going to be one question.
Through observation.
Hold on,
and
it's just going to be one question.
Okay, that's a fallacy.
So sorry, guys. Hold on a second.
That's a fallacy of induction.
We got to go back. So let's see. We got that from Mr. Cook Jr. Thanks for your super chat. They said, is Dunkin Atheism going to agree to debate Jack Angstreich, or is he still running from him? His response will likely be some rhetoric about troll, but it doesn't take away the fact that he's scared. If you want to,
yeah, you wasted your money asking the question. The question was asked and answered last week. Check out the videotape between me and Shannon Q Ducklips.
Gotcha. Let's see. You like Shannon's lips? Okay. Spikes.
Oh, I didn't say I liked them.
Gotcha. Okay, you don't like Shannon's lips. All right. Spike Smith, thanks for your super chat question. They said, for DD, assuming, so for Duncan, assuming God is real, they say, is he capable of willing himself into non-existence? How can we know if he hasn't done so already?
God, by his very nature, would be absolute, ultimate, and eternal, and so his non-existence cannot be. He exists necessarily. That would be like saying, can an apple equal not an apple? Okay, that would violate, at least from that person's perspective, the law of non-contradiction and excluded middle. So God necessarily exists, and since he necessarily exists, he cannot not exist.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Next up, Brian Stevens' Patreon question. Thanks for your question. He says, has Darth's or Duncan's script converted one atheist to theism? If so, can he name someone he converted?
Yeah, I get many notifications on a weekly and monthly basis of people who I've changed their mind, people who are sitting on the fence, some atheists, a lot of agnostics. I'm very happy with the responses that I've gotten.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Subtracted, thanks for your question. Let's see. They asked, Dunkin' Donuts, you don't have to have absolute knowledge to disprove the existence of God. You're presupposing a conclusion that you haven't demonstrated.
Yeah, that's just an incoherent question. The point is simply this: is if you do not start with the revelation of the one true God and his property set, you will have no grounds or foundation to assert or affirm anything. Here we have Jim here tonight, folks, where he's asserting this, he's asserting that, but he admits that he has nothing is ultimate, nothing is absolute, nothing is foundational, but he keeps on spewing assertions grounded in nothing. This is a perfect example of just pure atheism arbitrariness.
That is a false dichotomy. Just because something's not grounded in something absolute does not mean that it's not grounded in anything.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
That was a total clueless response that you just gave there. Totally clueless.
You're something right. That was clueless.
Something no. What you said was clueless.
One sec. I want to give.
You are abusive. You know that you are very.
No, it's not abusive.
Person.
No, it's not abusive. It's to the point.
No, it is abusive.
It's not a false dichotomy. Either something is ultimate or it's not ultimate. It's a true dichotomy, Jim.
Hold on a second.
What is not? What's the third alternative, Jim?
No, it's not either it is or it isn't. You're saying that either it's an ultimate or it's nothing.
Hold on,
Jim. I said it's either ultimate or not ultimate. What's the third alternative?
Hold on, 1 sec. I just want to ask. Can you do me a favor? Just 1 sec.
You are clueless.
Just a second. What we want to do is that I like if you're answering a question, Duncan, that's from one of the audience members, and then you take a jab at Jim. I've got to let Jim respond. I know, and I know you're okay with that. But then my challenge is then we get you guys start tumbling into a debate again, and so it's like I want to give him a chance just because you took a jab at him. And that's fine. I don't care if you take a jab at him as long as he gets to respond. And then we got to go back to Q&A. So I do have to try to pull it back into Q&A if you guys don't mind.
Go ahead.
Arn Rorvik, thanks for your question. They said, question for Duncan. Could God be lying to you through Scripture?
No.
Gotcha. Okay. Michael McCaffrey. I'm only laughing because of your pithiness. Michael McCaffrey, thanks for your super chat question. They said, does Duncan think it's possible for a universe to exist without a God? If that universe begat conscious beings, what would they ground their experience in?
No, that's just asking me if an idolatrous conception of reality could be the case. Well, the answer is it cannot be, because my central starting point is the existence of the triune God and that he has revealed himself. His existence is necessary. So any other scenario that would deny that would be necessarily false and incoherent.
Gotcha. Next up, because I always kind of prioritize debate challenges, the Messenger Reveals, thanks for your super chat question. This question in particular is offering a challenge to one of you guys. They said, let's have a debate. Objective morality, Trinity, Jesus' blood atonement, you not meeting the criteria to be a follower of Jesus. Care to defend any? My guess is that's for you, Duncan.
Was there a clear question there?
I think they're saying, would you care to defend any of your positions on objective morality, the Trinity, Jesus' blood atonement, or whether or not you meet the criteria to be a follower of Jesus?
I do every day on the internet.
Gotcha. Thanks, Mothra J. Disco, for your super chat question. They said, why is your rhetoric abusive, Darth?
Why is my rhetoric abusive? I don't think it's abusive. I think sometimes it's just simply straightforward, the plain truth about how sometimes my interlocutors are just simply being rude and obnoxious. I understand that there's always going to be some over talking, but when they use it as a tactic to disrupt the line of questioning because there are deer in the headlights, I think we saw many times tonight, Jim had no idea how to answer the questions. And so even before I could get some of the questions out, he cut me off.
I got to give him
so hypocritical, because you would answer one of my questions and then immediately follow it up with a question of your own without allowing me a chance to rebut to your response. So, I mean, you can just take that right back where you got it.
Hold on.
Do you have a metaphysical grounding for your being hypocritical?
Is
there a grounding for that, Jim?
Hold on a second. Just before I hate to mute you guys. I got you both on mute, but just to be sure we can go back into the Q&A. Since there was a jab at Jim, I want to give him a chance to respond. Then we got to go back into the Q&A. Steven Steen, thanks for your super chat. He said, "You're doing more than okay today, Jim. Wink, wink." Gotcha. Drew Nichols.
Steven, look, you're all right too, man.
Nasty
I don't care
guy.
what James says about you.
He also said, "I love Nickelback." That's weird. Why would you bring that up? Drew Nichols, thanks for your super chat.
Yeah, well...
He said, Duncan, are miracle claims in the Bible historically verifiable? If so, cite the standard within the methodology. Thanks.
Yeah, the miracles are confirmed by the eyewitness testimony that God has sovereignly and providentially secured to be written down objectively and accurately. If you do not accept those accounts, you're also going to be rejecting the Bible as a package and as a worldview, and consequently, you will have no worldview to affirm or deny or reason from. Deny the Christian worldview, and you won't have. How is it a false dichotomy?
Hold on, no.
You're saying either it's the Bible or nothing. Are you serious? Are you seriously saying there are not other worldviews?
No, you're not. There's only basically two worldviews. There's the worldview, the Christian worldview.
No, there's not basically.
May I finish, please? May I finish, please?
No, you may not, because it's
you asked me a
what
question.
You're saying
Hold on
is
a second.
asinine.
Okay,
hold on.
Listen.
We've gotta...
You ask me a question, and I'm attempting to answer you. So when I try to answer you, you immediately start over talking me.
Well, you want to keep calling me rude? I'm just going to give you a reason to call me rude.
You are being rude, and I'm going to call you out every time you are.
Let's see. So go ahead, Darth.
Now, the answer to the question is there are basically two worldviews. There's God or not God. Every worldview will either affirm the Christian God or a worldview will deny the Christian God. Now, there are different flavors within that worldview. They have different idolatrous conceptualizations, but essentially all non-Christian worldviews are essentially the same thing. It is not the Christian God. Okay?
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Next question. Thanks so much, Arn Rurvik. Thanks for your question. I'm sorry, Jim. In that one you took a jab at Duncan, so I have to give him the last word.
No, that's fine. I'm just.
Okay. I see it. You're responding to. Okay. Arn Rorvik, thanks for your question. Super chat. They said, "You're welcome, James." Smiley face. This is nice of you. Appreciate that. Subtracted. Thanks for your super chat as well. They said, "How can a fallible human determine a revelation from an infallible God?"
Very simple. God's sovereignty and providence secures that the message that he infallibly intends to get across gets to its target.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Philip C. Irvin Jack, forgive me if I mispronounced it. They said, "Hello, Dunkin Atheism. If everyone has received revelation from God, does that mean that atheists want to go to hell? And if so, does that mean that hell isn't such a bad place to go?"
Well, the answer to your question is atheists want to be in rebellion of the God that they know, so much so that they psychologically deceive themselves that they do not know that God exists, because they're clinging to their own autonomous reasoning. That while they cling to their autonomous reasoning, that prohibits them from receiving God's self-attesting and self-authenticating revelation. Their own psychological self-deception blinds them to God's revelation.
Gotcha. Let's see. Next up, Ja32. Thanks so much for your super chat. They said, "James, why do you let Duncan dominate and control?" Let's see. I thought that I stepped in once it got heated enough.
James did the best he could.
But, appreciate the criticism. Let's see. The Butcher, thanks for your super chat. Is this guy Kent Hovind's kid? He acts like him. Well, actually, Jim is not really Kent Hovind's kid. That was a joke I made. So, just kidding. I think they meant you, Duncan. Do you like Kent Hovind? Are you a fan?
Well, there are certain problems with Kent Hovind, but I do like his critique of what a poor theory the theory of evolution is.
Gotcha. Next up, thanks for your question. Maynard Says, we appreciate it. They said, can DD or Duncan prove God's existence without words?
No, everything proves God's existence, and if you don't accept that, then you're going to have to explain what the grounds for proof is. If you can prove something at all, then God exists. If you do not accept that, then you're going to have to explain what are the grounds for reason, proof, truth, objectivity, or anything. And as we saw in Jim's case, he basically conceded that there is nothing provable or ultimate or foundational.
Gotcha.
I didn't say there was nothing provable. That's absurd.
If you have nothing ultimate or foundational, how are you going to prove anything, Jim?
What are you talking about? Like I don't need to assert that there's something ultimate in order for me to prove to you that that I'm not wearing an undershirt or that I'm wearing pajama pants instead of actual pants because you can't see them on camera.
You're not understanding.
No,
you're not. You're going. It's going right over your head. If you're going to make an assertion, if you're going to make an assertion, it's either ultimate in itself or it's going to require a wider context. If that context is not ultimate, it will as well require a final context until you come to a stopping point to what is ultimate and foundational in reality. If you have no ultimate foundation, then nothing is provable, Jim. Okay, you have no grounds for anything.
We'll give Jim a chance to respond, then I got to go back to the Q&A.
My presuppositions are plenty good enough. They help me through my daily life. They help me seek truth. They help me establish right from wrong. The fact that I have never murdered anybody or raped anybody or kidnapped anybody or drowned babies or circumcised anybody. I mean, kind of makes me feel like I'm pretty moral, and especially in contrast to the Christian God.
That's an appeal to pragmatism, which means you'd have to have an ontology.
Hold on
for
one second.
Hold
on.
Does the world work in a certain way, Jim?
We do have to go back to the Q&A. I'm so sorry, guys.
No, you couldn't answer that anyway.
Brother John, thanks for your question. They said it's special revelation because it's special revelation. I think they might be doing a satire suggesting that you're using circular reasoning, Duncan.
No, special revelation is to differentiate it from natural revelation, where, for example, when God created the heavens, the moon, bunny rabbits, trees, and when Adam opened up his eyes, everything that he saw was a creative act of God and hence a revelatory action. Now, when God specifically spoke to Adam, that was a special revelation. When God spoke to Moses, that's a special revelation. When God guided the various authors of the Bible to infallibly write down the very message he intended, word for word, without error, that it too was a special revelation, right?
Was the sun a special revelation, being it causes skin cancer?
No, the sun is a natural revelation, and skin cancer is a judgment from God, which is another type of revelation. So, for example, in the Old Testament, God talks about that he creates well-being and calamity. When God performs temporal judgments, either directly or indirectly, that too is revelatory.
Is that where you get your morals?
Hold on one sec.
Morals come from the eternal nature of character of God, but you have no foundation for morals because you've admitted that you have no foundation or ultimacy. You want to make an appeal to your presuppositions, which are simply your imagination.
I do. I have a methodology for which I establish my morals.
Which is your imagination. Which is your imagination.
Well, my imagination is better than your God. I've never drowned anybody.
So you are now admitting that all of your morals are a product of your imagination. Thank you very much for admitting that.
Yes, and I'm saying if that's what you're saying, then yes, I will concede that and say that even my imagination as a fallible human, not being able to ground it in anything ultimate or absolute, I'm still better than your God.
Hold
Is
on
there
a
something
second.
that's
We've gotta
ultimate?
go.
Is there? Let me ask you this question. This is important. You just
It's
said
gonna go on
you're
forever.
human.
Come on, we just gotta
Okay.
go. We got a
You
lot of
just
questions.
said you're
This
human.
is
Is there
it's the
something that's
Q&A.
absolute or
It's the
ultimate that
Q&A.
secures humanness,
It's the
Jim?
Q&A. We got to stop somewhere. So hold on a second. We do have to jump back into the Q&A. Sorry, guys.
More
But
assertions.
otherwise, it's going to take forever. So next up, thanks so much for Maynard Saves. Oh, we got that one. Converse Contender, thanks for your super chat. They said, was going to relax, but looks like we need an after show. For sure, Converse Contender. Feel free to put it in the live chat. And if you want, I can link it in the description. I hope you guys have a fun party. And hopefully you get to see Dunkin Atheism and Jim continue their lifelong feud. So, Sigifredo Sarabia, thanks for your super chat. They said,
Well,
DD.
I don't have a problem with Jim personally.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry about it. I like teasing. But Duncan, they said, I'm usually nice, but you talk too much. If God's absolute and eternal, how is Jesus God and Christianity true if God gave his begotten son? Let's see.
Well, that's because God is eternal and he subsists as three persons as one being. And the second person of the Trinity incarnated himself into human form. Jesus Christ is fully God and fully man. He is one person with two natures. Study a little bit of Christian theology.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks so much. Next up, let's see. Oh, they did ask, they said, how does an eternal being bring forth another eternal while being absolute?
That's not the biblical position.
Oh, I see. So you're saying that it wasn't you're saying begotten wasn't saying that Jesus. Hold on a second. Hold on, I'm talking. Hold on. So you're saying that begotten doesn't mean like literally spraying into existence. Is that what you're saying?
That's not how the biblical text use it. It means begotten, meaning only one of his kind.
Okay.
No, begotten
gotcha.
means to have or to adopt.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the Greek in John 3?
Yes,
Gotcha.
I am familiar with it.
Okay,
I'm
good.
working
Then,
on it.
you should know that it's also translated
Let's
only
see.
one of its kind.
Hold on a second. All right,
Yes,
we're gonna
it is
jump.
also translated like that whenever it's in the proper subject verb object
We're
order.
going to jump to the next question. Thanks so much. S.J. Thomason is calling you out, Jim. She says, can we set up a debate on Jesus' resurrection between me and Jim soon?
You already know the answer to that one.
No.
Bring it on.
Oh, snap. It's on. Okay. Very exciting. Next up, thanks so much for your question. Let's see. Okay, we got that. Sigifredo. Translator Carmen.
I don't know why Jim bothers to debate when he has no
Next up,
foundation.
hold on a
He's
second.
limited.
Hold on. Here we go. We put a quarter in Darth again. He's like, well, give me 1 second, Darth. Translator Carmenum. They say any worldview inevitably reduces to one or more brute axioms. No deity can ever change that. Duncan's presuppositionalist tripe is vapid and circular.
Yeah, exactly. He still
Hold
relies
on.
on
That's for Duncan. I want to get Duncan's response.
Well, then what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to show that my starting point, the existence of the triune God, and I know this because of his revelation, is false. If they deny that God exists and has revealed himself, he's not going to have any foundation to say anything that's universal, let alone axioms. This is the dilemma that this questioner and Jim is in. Once you deny God as the ultimacy of reality, you have no grounds to assert anything, but they will continue to assert things even though they admit they have no grounding for it.
Let's see. Next up, thanks so much. We appreciate your super chat. Let's see. We've got a lot of haters in the chat tonight. I like that. You guys motivate me. You have no idea how much that motivates me. I love it. Thanks so much, Joni Spinoza. Thanks for your super chat. They said he's typical of... Oh, wait, I missed one. Sigifredo Sarabia said first, category error, deism versus atheism. I think they're saying that claim, namely deism versus atheism, is a category error. Therefore, Jim wins, is what they say.
Well, yeah, he definitely shucked Christianity real quick in exchange for deism.
Actually, no, I didn't present deism at all. I presented the Christian worldview to you, which you told me you were already familiar with, and you rejected it. I then went on to show that the denial and rejection of the Christian worldview as presented results in absurdity, which you confirmed by saying you had no foundation or ultimacy upon which to base assertions or denials.
Gotcha.
You refuse to allow me to address Christianity on its own, and you forced me to address deism.
I didn't force you to. I simply asked you in the beginning, do you accept the general and special revelation of the Christian God in natural and special revelation, the Christian scriptures? And you said no. You said you're entirely familiar with it. So I'm not going to continue to beg and plead to you when you are already familiar with the data. Once you deny the Christian worldview, I'm then going to show you how you cannot deny or affirm anything because you have no foundation or grounding in your worldview for affirmation or denial. And you admitted it. You said you have no, there is, you said there is no ultimacy.
Hold on,
you said there's nothing absolute. If nothing is absolute, then you can't assert facts. Thank you for admitting
that you diverted from the topic. Thank you.
I did not divert from the topic. No, you're misrepresenting what I said. That's very deceitful.
I don't think I am.
Hold on a second.
It's a complete misrepresentation, which is common with atheists.
Let's go to the next question. Thanks so much. We appreciate all of your questions. Let's see. Joni Spinoza, thanks for your question. They said, he's typical of wife beater. He shouldn't allow on YouTube. I don't know what that even, like, I think there cut maybe one or two words missing from that. But thanks, God servant, for your question. They said, Jim Major's friend, would you be interested in having a debate about quote-unquote evil here on Modern Day Debate? You got
Sure.
You got all sorts of people calling you out. They want a piece of you.
It's amazing. He says he wants to
debate. Hold on a second. Hold on a second, Darth.
Anything.
Hold on.
It's amazing.
So hold on. Let's
Have
go
you
to
watched
the
any
next
of my
one.
debates, Darth?
Next up. Don't put a quarter in Darth.
I've watched some of your videos, but what I'm surprised is how you make any assertions at all, given that nothing is ultimate.
We have to keep moving.
I guess I must be right. I guess you must be wrong because I'm doing it.
Hold on a second, guys.
That's not the issue.
Hold on. Okay, I'm so sorry. I've got you guys on mute. I'm so sorry. I've got you guys on mute. They can't hear you. Well, okay. So I'll ask the next question. You guys, the audience cannot hear you. The audience cannot hear you. The audience cannot hear you. You guys have been... Okay, well, nobody's hearing either of your points because you've been muted for the last, 20 seconds. Okay, great. I'm happy for him. Mothra J Disco, thanks for your question. I appreciate you guys. The passion is, I appreciate your guys' passion. Mothra J Disco, thanks for your question. They said, Duncan, how do you, let's see. I mean, if you guys are, so they say, how do you hit a wife the biblical way? I don't know if that's meant to imply that the Bible says that you can hit your wife, or if this is some sort of personal accusation. Be aware, so Duncan, how do you interpret that? What's this wife beating stuff that keeps coming up?
Who knows?
Okay, gotcha. If you want to respond, you can. You don't have to.
No, I don't know what they're referring to.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Next up, thanks for your question from Spartan Theology, who says, just went full Darth. Let's see. Maybe they're referring to your passion. Okay, next. SJ. Oh, we got that one. That's between Jim. Yep. Stupid whore energy, as she likes to call herself. Very sick, nasty woman. She says, induction isn't a fallacy when you rest it on probability.
Is that directed at me?
I think so.
Yeah. How do you establish background information? In order to talk about probability, you're going to have to know what is ultimate and static, along with what is dynamic. Right now, unless you accept the revelation of the eternal God, who is the static one, who provides for all regularities and change, you're not going to have any basis for probability.
Sounds like a cult.
Gotcha. Let's see.
No,
Thanks.
that was a philosophical point.
Gotcha. Next up, appreciate your question.
That went right over your head, Jim.
Hold on a second. All right, hold on. Elijah Bar Sobach, thanks for your question. They said, God has revealed to me in a way I can be certain that Dunkin Atheism is a clown. Looks like they're trolling you.
Well, did they pay you to do this?
Me or?
I mean, did they pay to get these questions in?
Yes, that was a super chat.
Oh, okay, good. So then you're earning money, so that's okay then.
Gotcha. I don't know if you're insulting me or them, but
no, not you. I'm just saying it. If they want to put money into your ministry's pocket by insulting me, more power to them.
The Messenger Reveals. We appreciate your super chat. They said, let's have a debate. Oh, we got that one. Sorry about that. Michael W. Roble, thanks for your question. James, do your PhD studies require you to provide some real-life abnormal psych patient studies? Just asking. You guys. Let's see. Next, Joni Spinoza, thanks for your question. They said, the Bible is a morality test. If you like it, you've failed. Let's see. I think that's probably for you, Duncan.
What was the question?
They said the Bible is a morality test, and if you like it, the Bible, then you've failed that morality test.
Well, unfortunately, if by like it, meaning that I accept the message of the Bible from Genesis to Revelation as a package, and that by accepting the Christian worldview, I fail some morality test, all they're just simply saying is that my acceptance doesn't comport with their unfounded morality, because outside the Christian worldview, you're not going to be able to establish any grounding whatsoever for ethical imperatives or morality. There will be no ultimate grounding. It'll simply be just arbitrary like Jim's.
Next up, let's see. Okay, why do you have to do... Okay, so Jim, if you want to respond, to be fair, because he took a jab at you, you can respond.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, Drew Nichols, thanks for your super chat. They said, still waiting for that citation of the standard within historical methodology that verifies miracle claims. Cite the standard. Cite it.
The answer to the question is not going to be quite what you want. God's revelation, both of the non-miraculous occurrences and the miraculous occurrences, are verified as a package, as a worldview. If you do not accept that it is self-authenticating, self-attesting, then you're not going to have any worldview by which you can verify anything, because the Christian God himself, his properties and attributes, and his revelatory actions are going to be the ground by which we can verify anything. If you deny that, then on what grounds are they going to offer to verify or prove anything? The answer is nothing, just like Jim Major's worldview. He has no absolute to turn to.
Gotcha. Why do you have to... Okay, Jim, if you want to respond, you can. He's coming at you tonight.
Well, that's what he said.
No, it's okay. It's not like it's against the rules. It's just that I have to give Jim a chance to respond each time. We'll be here all night, but you know what? I got to be honest. I'm always in such a good mood during this that I do want to respect your guys' time though. So I will try to keep it short and pithy. Elijah,
and you're in a good mood and you're not even smoking pot.
That's true. What does that mean? I've never smoked pot in my life. Elijah Bar Sobek.
I thought I smelled something.
Although people do sometimes, I've seen it like an unusual amount. It's not like every debate, but it's not unusual where I see people who are like, is James on something? So Elijah Bar Sobek, thanks for your question. They said, are aborted babies a judgment from your God?
Repeat the question. Are aborted babies what?
A judgment from your God.
Are they a judgment from God? That's like asking if one person kills another person, is it a judgment of God? It could be in certain instances, but is killing a baby a judgment from God? Not necessarily. Just like the killing of somebody might be a judgment from God. Other times it just simply may be an unjustified evil action.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Jim looks confused. Thanks so much.
Yeah, well, what's the difference? God causes both.
Well, if God causes somebody to kill somebody else, then you're saying that they don't have agency?
I'm saying you're saying that they shouldn't be held accountable.
I didn't say that. Where'd you get that from?
So you don't believe that God's prescriptions are necessarily moral?
What does that mean?
That what God prescribes his creation to do, that he will tell somebody to do something that is wrong. Do you believe that God
that's an incoherent statement. It is impossible for God to command people to do things wrong, because what is wrong is what does not comport with the character or will or plan of God. So it's impossible for God to command somebody to do something wrong.
So you believe that chattel slavery and prisoners of war and killing women and children is moral?
It is God's prerogative to create life and end life anytime he sees fit. And the fact that you or I or anyone else, or even a toddler or a teenager or 20-something or an 80-year-old is still alive, they're only alive because of the grace of God. God is under no obligation to keep anybody alive.
So how do you ground your morality with something like that, where God doesn't have an obligation to keep anybody alive, or not even an obligation to keep them alive, but he has the privilege of taking their life whenever he wants?
It's not real. I wouldn't use the word privilege. I would say prerogative, because he's the creator. He owns all things.
Right. He doesn't have to destroy anything.
What does that mean?
I'm saying, like, that's where you get your morality from, is somebody that will prescribe the killing of women and children, and you're saying that it's okay because
is morality. I'm going to answer your question with a question. All right. Is morality in your worldview ultimately grounded in an absolute, or is morality ultimately arbitrary?
It's irrelevant to my question to you. I'm asking you.
No, it's a relevant question, because the way you answer
you can ask
will
me
illustrate it. Morality in the Christian worldview is goodness, and morality is that which reflects the character and will of God,
and which includes prescribing killings.
Yeah, killings are from God's point of view. It's God's prerogative to kill anybody.
Then how do you not kill people? How do you not think that it's moral?
I don't think that's a category error. You're failing to understand the creator-creature distinction.
I'm failing to understand how you differentiate between what is moral and what is immoral whenever your God does things.
What is immoral? What is immoral is that which deviates and contradicts the character or will or plan of God.
So I can drown a baby and that's fine.
No, because you're not God.
But it doesn't matter. God is my benchmark for morality, right? Like
God,
right?
What is immoral? God himself, his eternal character and his will and plan are the eternal absolute plumb line of what is righteous and good. You are not. He is.
So is it a do as I say, not as I do kind of thing?
No, what I've already explained it to you. Okay, that you're making another category error. You're trying to anthropomorphize God.
Keep saying category error.
I'm trying. You are. Yeah. No, I do understand what it's mean. That's why I directly applied it to, because you are making a category error. Because what you are now doing is you are conceptualizing God as though he were a creature, like he's some cosmic superintendent of the cosmos. We're talking about the ultimacy of reality, who is the standard of everything.
Hold on one second. I do have to go back to the question and answers pretty quick.
Sure, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Thanks so much for your patience. Next up, thanks so much for your question. Let's see. The messenger, oh wait, no name, thanks for your question. They said, how does one discern special revelation from fiction or hallucination? So I think they're saying, like, how do you know it's special revelation rather than like just wrong or hallucination?
God's special revelation is discerned in virtue of God's sovereign plan. God, his sovereignty and his providence secure that when the special revelation is received, as long as somebody is not in a state of rebellion or engaging in autonomous reasoning, then the self-authenticating nature of the Christian scriptures from Genesis to Revelation will be clearly seen. However, if one is in a state of rebellion, of autonomous reasoning, that man decides the nature of reality, which will ultimately lead to incoherence in thinking, where one will say things like Jim did, where there is no ultimacy or foundation for anything, and then go around making assertions. So God's revelation is self-attesting. Claims of revelation that are not from God are not self-attesting.
By another revelation, which you know by another revelation, and you know that he's sovereign because a revelation said a revelation said a revelation.
Yeah, could you repeat that, please?
Well, it would be ad infinitum revelation. You're basically saying that you are verifying these revelations, that they are true and accurate because God is sovereign, and you know that God's sovereign because of a revelation, and you know that he's secure in his providence because of another revelation, and so you're the revelation.
Yeah, God's revelation is secured by his revelation. Now, Jim, if you don't accept that, if you do not accept that God's revelation is, do you accept do you reject all circular reasoning in principle, Jim?
Not all circular reasoning, no.
Okay, then
But
on what
in this
grounds?
particular case, I certainly would. We're talking about
Okay,
something
good.
that is,
Then you would reject it on the ground.
and omnibenevolent.
Then you would reject it. Then you would reject it on the grounds that you have a different ultimate authority. Then what would that be, Jim?
No, that's a category error.
Jim, on what grounds would you reject the self-attesting nature of the Christian scriptures?
That's a category error. We're talking about God.
It's not a cat. No, no. What we're talking about is the putative revelation of the Christian grounds, Christian God. On what grounds would you reject it? By what authority?
That it has to be verified by another revelation.
But that's not answering the question.
It's not dependent on anything but itself.
No.
The same reason
you're not addressing the question. You're making the fundamental error that every atheist I encounter makes. By what standard would you adjudicate that by, Jim?
Next question.
So you don't have an answer for it. Thank you. Just like every other atheist I talk to.
No, I have an answer, but I'm not going to answer you.
What's your ultimate authority for reason, Jim? Is it your mind?
I presuppose that you are lying and that your God doesn't exist and that you are a cruel
that's not an answer. Again, you have evaded the question. I asked you, what's your ultimate authority?
Hold on, you guys.
So this is what you do. I ask you a legitimate question and you dodge and you dance and you tap dance.
Got revelation from my left nut.
I ask you what your ultimate authority is, Jim. Do you have an answer?
Hold on.
Yes, my left nut gave me revelation that you are evil.
I didn't hear that.
Hold on. So sorry, guys. Listen. I don't want to hear about Jim's testicles.
Loud and clear. Jim, what is your ultimate authority? Repeat that.
You guys, we have to go.
Next question.
So I think he said his left testicle, but we really don't need to.
Okay, so last week we had Shannon Q. Douglas saying that her worldview was cheesecake, and now Jim's ultimate authority is his left testicle.
Easy there. Don't calm down. You're gonna stroke out, man.
No, I'm perfectly fine. I'm just glad you admitted that your ultimate authority is your left testicle.
Well, you know,
there we go, folks. Does the audience hear that? This is the best that the atheists have. His ultimate
it's not quite
authority
circular.
is his left testicle.
Okay, enough about Jim's testicles, please.
I'm glad he said that.
Nathan,
he just revealed what a shambles his worldview is.
Nathan Thompson is in the house, by the way. Nathan, good old Nathan Thompson. I just remembered something. Okay, so anyway. We're gonna move quick, try to get through as many of these questions as we can. Thanks for your patience, folks. I'm embarrassed. It's been a long day. Okay. We appreciate your question from our dear friend, Messenger Reveals. They said, Jim Majors is closer to entering the kingdom of heaven than Darth Dawkins. I'll debate Darth on anything. He's a poor interlocutor. Messenger Reveals coming at you, Duncan. What do you think?
Yawn.
He's not interested in debating.
Maynard saves.
No, I've been debating all night. You've just been
Maynard saves. Thanks for your question. They said, Duncan, can you provide your revelation wasn't an overproduction of DMT produced by your body?
Yeah, this is another canard put into different words. The point is simply this: is if you do not accept the Christian scriptures from Genesis to Revelation as the self-authenticating, self-verifying revelation of God, then you will have no grounds for verification of anything. You will be plunged into absurdity, just like Jim Majors has admitted. He has no ultimate authority, but his left testicle is his ultimate authority.
Gotcha.
Which oddly has more morality than your God. So that's crazy.
So your left testicle is what it ultimately decides what's right and wrong, Jim?
Yeah, it's nuts, isn't it?
This is what atheists are left with. You have no answer as to what is the ultimate ground for verifying things. So you have to say that a part of your genitalia is your ultimate authority. Why am I not surprised?
I don't know if you can tell, but I'm mocking you because your worldview is so hypocritical.
Okay, well then if you're jesting, then can you actually tell me what your ultimate authority is by which you make assertions, Jim? You have an answer to that?
Next question.
Hold on a second, you guys. I love your passion, but just to try to get through as many questions.
He has no answer.
None
whatsoever.
It's almost 2 hours, so I want to fly through as many as we can. Maynard saves. Okay. We got that one. Don Giovanni, thanks for your question. They said, how can Duncan deny the Trinity, Din, Nehru, and Felor? I don't know who that is. I feel
Tell
like
that
I
person
should.
to lay off the pot.
Gotcha. Okay. The Undead Christian, thanks for your question.
With drugs.
Let's see. They said for Jim Majors, it's accepted in science that space has had a beginning. My question to you is if it hasn't had a beginning, if wasn't God who created it, who or what did create space, since it had a beginning?
That's to me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where space time came from, where matter came from. All I know is that anything that we see in the universe that is created, like like the pin, for example. Uh, Somebody created this, but by create, we don't mean the same kind of create that Darth means. By create, we mean that we assembled this from materials that we had already found, not a creating a nothing from something. So either Darth is going to say that God is nothing because God exists outside of space time. That's the only way that he could create space and time. And we're not even going to talk about the problem of God being able to interact with his creation if he does indeed reside outside of space time.
Did your left testicle tell you that?
Yes, it did.
Please, no more about Jim's genitals. Okay, thanks so much for your question.
Well, then I'd like to know what his ultimate authority is then, but he won't tell me.
Well, I could show you, but the video would probably get banned.
No, you have no ultimate authority. You shoot your mouth off making all these assertions, and yet you do not know what is ultimate. So you've just admitted all your assertions are grounded in nothing.
You're going to be mad all night, aren't you?
I'm not mad. I'm assertive.
Next.
And I don't need to smoke pot on camera to calm myself down.
You guys are, what is the word?
Okay.
You guys are a dynamic duo. You're the odd couple. Jay Shy, thanks for your question. They said, Jim, if your morals are grounded in your imagination, how are other people wrong for their subjective imaginations? How can you justify you are correct?
Well, because I don't justify it just based on mine. We all use morality as a way to survive and placate with society. Not everything that we keep from doing, we believe that we shouldn't do. Sometimes we don't do things because society thinks that it's bad. For example, smoking pot on camera. Some people don't do it because they feel like it's bad because other people judge them for it. For what reason, I don't know. It's stupid, quite frankly. But then there are people who have no problem doing it because they see that it's nothing more than insecure people lashing out. It's all just relative to the culture that you're raised in, your family, and just really the ethical framework that you're raised with.
All right, give me it. I knew it all on a second. No, Darth. We're not going to. Just let me ask the next question. Thanks for your. Just want to get you guys out of here on time. Thanks, Joni Spinoza. Thanks for your.
I just expected a much better.
Hold on, Joni Spinoza. Thanks for your question. They say you all saved me a night of boredom. Thanks, Jim, and thanks, Johnny Walker. I'm confused. I don't know who Johnny Walker is. Is that you, Duncan? Oh no.
No.
Okay.
Johnny Walker. I know.
I heard it's like the rumor is your real name is like Duncan, like that's your first name, like Duncan Carter or something.
No, Duncan is just a screen name.
It's like a play on words. No?
Yeah.
That's a nice name.
It used to be Duncan Dawkins, the floating head of Richard Dawkins in a coffee cup. So I changed it to Dunkin Atheism.
A character.
Which I certainly did tonight.
Next up, Drew Nichols. He's feisty. All right. Duncan, you cannot claim that the historical method can verify miracle claims if there is no standard within that methodology. If there is a standard, please cite it.
Again, God's word, his revelation is self-authenticating and self-attesting. The only reason why one would not see it is because they're blinded by their own autonomous reasoning. If one is operating from autonomous reasoning, then they will have no ultimate grounds to affirm or deny anything.
Those crazy people who think that genital mutilation is bad, like what the hell are they thinking? It's in the Bible. Come on.
You have no ultimate grounds to assert anything as good or bad, Jim.
Yes, I do.
You told me there is nothing ultimate.
Well, I just realized it's my left nut.
No.
Okay, so this is the bankruptcy of your
atheism.
Hold on. Your worldview is a train wreck.
Jim, what have you done?
And it's a disaster. It's a disaster of Hindenburg proportions.
Well, that's not very nice.
No, I wasn't. It's a characterization that your worldview is a disaster.
You haven't even seen my nuts. You don't even know.
Hold on.
You have no grounds. Are you intoxicated, Jim? Why are you talking this way?
Nobody's seen Jim's nuts. Okay, next question. Thanks for your super chat.
See, this is what they're left with, James. Okay, they have to be obscene on camera rather than defend his worldview, which he did not.
I can get on camera, coward.
What's up? Yeah. Next up, Drew Nichols.
It has nothing to do with being a coward.
Drew Nichols, thanks for your question.
It has everything to do with being a coward.
Drew Nichols, thanks for your question. They said, Duncan, you cannot claim that the historical method can verify miracle claims if there is no standard within that methodology. They say, if there is a standard, please cite it.
What was the question?
They said, you cannot claim that the historical method can verify miracle claims if there is no standard within that methodology, namely the methodology of the historical record. And
all I simply have to say is that God's word is the ultimate standard, either in specificity or in principle for everything. Deny that, and you won't be able to ground standards or anything for that matter.
Gotcha. Thanks so much.
Because you won't have a Christian worldview. All you'll have is a chance system. All you'll have is relativism, which Jim admitted to here tonight.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Next up, appreciate your question from Virillion. If DD got special revelation from God to kill, would he?
I'm a cessationist. I don't believe that God is continuing to give revelation. God did give revelation that Abraham was to sacrifice his son, and Abraham obeyed God, and then God stopped him.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Next up.
Because God didn't know that he was going to do it.
Next up. Thanks so much for your question. It's like sassy boys. Okay, so let's see. Philip Siervinajak. If I say it wrong, I'm sorry. They said they said my last name is pronounced Shervenyak. Thank you. So sorry about that. It is actually okay. I appreciate that. So Philip Shervenyak, they say, if you worship God, do you agree with God that atheists should be burned in hell for all eternity?
Everyone who does not repent and respond to the convicting power of the Holy Spirit to turn to God for salvation, for the damnation that they know is coming, certainly deserves to spend eternity separated from God.
You can just say yes.
Hold on.
Whether they're atheist or somebody who's religious or whatever.
Thank you. Ja32, thanks for your super chat. They said, if God existed, Dunkin Atheism would not.
No. You have to have an intelligence test for these questions, James.
Grim HC, thanks for your super chat. They said, does Duncan understand that claims of ultimates and absolutes are invalid since they originate from a Christian worldview? Asserting they are needed is an argument from authority. Duncan is using God to justify God.
Yeah. So by what authority does that moron say that?
Let's see.
Well, that's just a crazy worldview. That means God could change his mind at any time. And next thing you know, what's moral isn't moral the next day. You know, we could be killing everybody tomorrow if God decides to change his mind. Well, what kind of crazy
which God are you talking? Well, you're not talking about the Christian God.
Wait, what is this?
There's no need all the time.
Hold on.
No, he does not. That's a fallacy.
He doesn't. Can you tell me where he was a human?
Hold on. I got you. You're on mute. Sorry to mute you. Forgive me for doing that.
Yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. Read your Bible, Jim. Do you have?
I don't know. Okay.
Hold on. 1 second, you guys. To be fair, like Grim HC isn't insulting you, Darth. He's just. They said so. They're saying that you're using circular reasoning. Like I think you just called him a moron.
Yeah. Whenever we appeal to what our ultimate authority and ultimate commitment is, we're going to have a type of circularity. It is unavoidable. The way people are going to object to that is either in principle or because they have a different ultimate authority. Right? Now, if they reject to it in principle, they're screwed. Therefore, they cannot make any assertions. They will have no ultimate authority to appeal to. Therefore, everything they say will ultimately and finally be arbitrary. Just like Jim Majors here tonight, who said there is no ultimacy.
No, please. Okay. Jane Hizel. I mean, Jim, if you want to respond, you can. To be fair.
No, go ahead.
Shane Heil, if I'm saying it right. Sorry if I'm not Shane. Said, we humbly pray to Jim for him to show us his ultimate authority. Okay, nasty. Let's see. It sounds like
he has none. He says like, there is none, but how would he know that?
That's Steven Steen hiding behind a fake account.
You got short-term memory loss, don't you?
Next, Jay Shy, thanks for your question. They said, so Jim, you're confusing moral ontology with moral epistemology. Just because morals are relative in cultures and society just shows how we accept or come to know morals, not their ontology.
No, I understand that, but he's demanding that I ground my epistemology with epistemology.
That's not what but you are totally clueless. You need to have an ontology to ground your epistemology, but you have no ontology. If you do not have an ontology, then you are. May I finish, please? If you do not have an ontology, your epistemology is vacuous. Do you have an ontology, Jim?
I'm sure that I could formulate one. Yeah.
No, you can't, because earlier you said nothing is ultimate. So you don't have an ontology. You went on record earlier. You screwed yourself.
Wow. Okay. Next.
Gotcha.
Jesus.
We appreciate all of your questions, folks. This has been an insane night. We've talked a lot about Jim's testicles, but you never know what's going to happen here, I guess. So thanks so much. That's all I can say. It's always a fun time, folks. I want to say thanks so much for being here. It's always a blast to hang out with you. Thank you guys for real. I admit, I was a little bit cranky. I told a few people to shut up in the live chat tonight. It's like, sometimes it's just, yeah. So sometimes, yeah. So anyway, I'm going to try to be more patient. I mean, 99% of you are so pleasant. And if you have a concern, you'd be like, hey, James, like, I have fun at the channel. Sometimes I think that maybe this would make the channel better. And I'm like, cool, like, let me work on that. But some of you are like, ugh, James, this is my channel. Stop doing X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So anyway, thanks so much for being here. Really fun. But I want to say thanks so much for our guests, Jim Majors. And
Thank you, James.
My pleasure. Thank you guys for being here. They are linked in the description, folks. So if you're like, I want more, you can find more there. If you love debates, we've got a lot more coming up, including Sargon of Akkad, Jim Majors' dad, and Vosh, his brother, who will be debating this Saturday. That's going to be epic. So we are very excited. Hit that reminder button if you want a reminder of that. And let's see. Oh, Randolph Richardson. You guys know Randolph, right?
Yeah.
Jim, you have to know him. He said hello to you, and then Duncan, he said he'd love to debate you.
Fine.
Hey, Randall.
Great.
Oh, by the way,
don't do it, man. It's torture. It's not worth it.
Yeah, it's torture when you don't have a worldview to stand on.
Yeah, it must suck.
Yeah, it must suck for you.
Next up, you guys are sassy. We like you though. Next, there is an after show. So Converse Contender, who will be guest moderating tomorrow. I love the guy. Terrific guy. People are saying he's the best. He's going to be on tomorrow moderating on whether or not porn is bad for you. So that's going to be a wild one. It's going to be a triple threat debate with one of your guys' favorites. He's making a return after about a month of being out. So I think you guys will enjoy that. His radical return. Oh, but yeah. So, okay, I mentioned that. And thanks so much for being here. It's always a pleasure, folks. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. Take care.